This show is presented by the 323 Network. You can watch all your favorite 323 friends and shows on the 323 Network YouTube channel, follow us on all social media platforms at 323read, and support us as we continue to grow at patreon.com/323read. That's 323REID. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 323. I am your host, Reed Murphy.
I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Look at the show. I'm the captain now. Welcome to the fucking show. Fuck Scott.
That is right, folks. You're not listening to that smooth, velvety voice of Daddy Reed Murphy tonight. That's because it's his illegitimate son, Scott Ellia. I've stolen the keys to the Ferrari that is the 323, so buckle up, because this is College Shame Day. It's still summer vacation here at the 323. But over the past couple months, Reed and I looked back and saw what was successful over the last year. And one thing was for certain, that you folks really enjoyed that deep dive into the world of college football. Coupling that with NFL coverage over the last year and a half. So we decided, hey, why not break that into its own thing? But rather than throwing more on Reed's shoulders, we decided that I'd take the reins for once and lead this show out of the proverbial tunnel. First, a little housekeeping. For those not familiar with college football, there's always seems to be some kind of major storyline every offseason. Last year, we saw the ups and downs and the all-arounds of implementing the new NIL rules and regulations that still haven't gotten figured out 100%. But this year, we've seen a whole new slew of teams involved in conference realignment. I mean, hell, we haven't seen people rushing to find new homes in this country like this since the westward expansion and the gold rush of the 1800s. Shit. Thought I'd get a couple laughs on my own show, but we'll keep trying. Anyways, folks, but to kind of keep everybody up to date as far as the conference realignment goes, let's go over what's happened thus far. No major changes in the ACC, but put a pin in that. We'll get back to that in a second. Same thing with the MAC and the Mountain West. Sunbelt, no changes this year, but last year you got to remember they added the JMU, and we saw how great JMU came out running. They definitely proven that they deserve to be in the FBS with the rest of the big boys. So I'm really excited to see what kind of a small mid-major school like that will further do in the future. Also, the SEC, they'll be adding Texas and Oklahoma next season. Nothing this year. No, a lot of these changes have been happening between the Big 10, the Big 12, and the Pac-12. I mean, you got Big 10. They're going to be adding the likes of Oregon and UCLA, USC, and Washington next season in 2024. And the Big 12 this year, they're adding BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF. Next year, they'll be adding the other four teams in the Pac-12, Arizona State, bringing a great in-state rivalry between those colleges. Colorado and Deion Sanders. And then also Utah. So, I mean, it makes sense having Utah if you have BYU. Have the whole holy war in Utah going on. It always makes for great football. But then you look at the Pac-12. You have those 8 teams leaving between next season. So who's left? You got Washington State, Oregon State, Cal, and Stanford. And man, they are just giving us the best Will Smith impression they possibly can.
How come you don't want me, man?
I don't know why they don't want you, man. Because you guys are great institutions. I mean, hell, Oregon State's in the top 20 in the AP poll. Good for them. Getting a little bit of love from the media. And also look at Washington State. They're probably the 4th on that list. You got Cal. You got Marshawn Lynch and Aaron Rodgers, just to name a few great Cal Bears. And then Stanford. I mean, hell, Stanford's been a cornerstone of the college football world for seems like forever. You got the likes of Andrew Luck, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, hell, even John Elway back in the day played for Stanford. So it leads you to believe what's going to happen with the other 4 schools. I mean, I think the most likely thing is they're going to end up in the Mountain West. We'll dive a little bit deeper here in a second, but I think Cal and Stanford definitely have the best options. I mean, I think the most far-fetched thing would be them to join the other Ivy League schools. I mean, I know they're not Ivy League schools right now, but they're definitely of that caliber on the West Coast, but it's not really likely because that would drop them down the FCS, and they're too big of, institutions to just play in that kind of a conference. And then you thought they were going to go to the ACC. And now that's not likely going to be happening. Recent conference call with the ACC presidents had the presidents of Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina State, UNC voting against adding not only Stal and Stanford and Cal, but also SMU. But when one college that did vote to add those teams was Notre Dame. Yes, Notre Dame is already part of the ACC for their other sports programs, but they're still independent in football. And they voted to try to get Stanford and Cal in there. Man, Stal. Maybe that's what they should do. Maybe they should just join colleges and make Stal University. Either way, there's only two words that I have for Notre Dame right now.
Shut up!
That's right. Shut up. If you are a part-time resident in the ACC, you shouldn't get a vote. I mean, who the hell do you think you are? Yeah, you're Notre Dame, and you're one of the most historically known college football teams and institutions, but it's like trying to have your cake and eat it too. You want to throw that weight around, but you don't want to join full-time? I'd say, hell, you don't get a vote until you join full-time. But that leads to a quote a little blurb that I had seen recently from head coach from UCLA, Chip Kelly. And he's vying for every football team to be independent. Went on to say Notre Dame is an independent in football, but they're in a conference for everything else, like we just discussed. But why aren't we all independent for football? Take the 64 teams in the Power 5, make that one division. Take the 64 teams in the Group of 5, make that another division. Power 5 plays for a championship, Group of 5 plays for a championship, and no one else gets affected. I mean, it's not crazy. You got to remember, Notre Dame's not the only independent school as it stands right now. You still got Army out there. You got UConn. You got UMass. I know those three aren't really in the upper echelon of a Notre Dame, but it's a practice that's has a storied history in college football. I mean, even as recent as the late 90s, early 2000s, there had to have been at least double-digit figures in independent schools. I mean, got to look back in the late 80s. There's at least over 20. It's because Chip Kelly's right. The sport's different from everybody else. They only play once a week. So travel really isn't that big of a deal for a football team to go from coast to coast or state to state like other schools, like other sports are. I mean, you got basketball teams playing 3-4 games a week. You got baseball teams playing 3-4 games a week. That's a lot to have these college kids traveling all over the country constantly for that kind of stuff. I mean, shit, you look at these professional teams and how much they struggle. Especially in the NFL when they got to go over the ocean and go and play in Dublin or London or Germany, wherever they want to put a game in over there, and how much that has a toll on them mentally and physically. You're expecting these 20-something-year-olds to do the same thing? Nah, the other sports wouldn't work, but football would work. I mean, hell, that's the direction that's going in right now. I mean, you guys see the college football playoff expanding, it seems, every year. That's what they want. So what's that mean? That means more money, more revenue coming into these schools. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. But going back to the ACC and talking about those four schools, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina State, and UNC, why would they vote no? Stability. That's why. They don't want stability right now. They want out, but they can't get out. Not only is the exit fee to leave the ACC currently reported at $120 million, but there's also something called a grant of rights. Back in 2016, each ACC member school signed that grant of rights, which agrees to transfer the media rights of those schools irrevocably and exclusively, regardless of whether they remain in the conference or not. Until the deal expires, anyone want to take a guess? It's 2023 right now. 2036, another 13 years. These schools aren't going to wait another 13 years. They're trying to get out now. You know, unfortunately, the deadline to be able to make an exit from the conference is August 15th. And as of record, that is in another 4 hours, 4.5 hours. And it ain't happening. So it's going to be a long, drawn-out process, that's for sure, folks. No, they don't want that stability because the more schools they get in there, that means the more votes they have to keep the conference going. Currently, there's 16 teams. You need 13 teams to vote, right? Yes, to have new schools added on, and they only got 12 because the 4 don't want to do it. I think the ACC is scared, that's for sure, because if FSU and Clemson can find a way out, that's just going to open up the floodgates for the rest of the ACC to leave. Just like the Pac-12. This is the same conversations that happened last year. I mean, there were reports coming out that USC president completely squashed and said absolutely not to adding schools from the Mountain West to the Pac-12. And now look, we are a year later. Pac-12's dead, folks. Unless they can change something, which doesn't look very likely anytime soon. That's right, folks. Like I said, the Pac-12 is dead. When you go, well, it's not even the Pac-12 anymore. It's technically the Pac-4 with Cal, Stanford, Oregon State, Washington State. Once a storied conference in the college football universe, it's just up in flames. One really important thing to remember is the NCAA requires 8 members to be recognized as an FBS pro conference, and my math, 4 does not equal 8. Even though there is a grace period of 2 years, which is nice, so that'll get them to 2025. But according to NCAA bylaw 20.02.9.2, because yes, folks, I am a professional, and I did some a little bit of research. A conference shall continue to be considered FBS league for 2 years after it drops below 8-team threshold. But I mean, what does the Pac-12 really have going for it right now? They don't have a television rights deal in place. It doesn't look like they're going to get one anytime soon. George Kliavkov, commissioner of Pac-12, it's highly unlikely he even continues even long term with how much he's just botched the Pac-12 at this point. Not to mention countless lawsuits, not only with the National Labor Relations Board, employment claims. I mean, it's excess of $50 million owed to even Comcast for an accounting error. And you're trying to get other schools to come in when you have all this stacked up against it right now? I mean, hell, it's already kind of certain that the Pac-12 are going to lose 2. It's just increasingly important designations. One from the NCAA and one from the college football playoff. The autonomous 5 governance status that grants them more authoritative powers in rulemaking. So if they don't have the teams in place to hold FBS status, and they can't help make any rule changes to the game. In the Power 5 status with the college football playoff that grants those leagues more revenue in the playoff distribution model. So that means less money, which even means less they can do at this point. There's only really 3 options, maybe 4. And that's going to be merging with either merging or taking teams from the AAC, the American Conference, but they require a 27th month notice. And if you do math real quick, 27 months is more than 24 months, which is the 2-year grace period. So they can't do that. They can't wait that out, which would force these smaller schools to have to pay an exit fee. And most times than not, these smaller schools don't have much money to throw around just to be able to pay and just leave one conference to go to another one, especially another conference that's floundering currently at the moment. Mountain West exit fees north of $34 million if they wanted to join next year in 2024. And thankfully, it drops down in half to $17 million for 2025, which makes a little bit more sense. Ride it out for a couple more years and get some of these Mountain West teams. No, I think the most likely thing to do would be taking this Pac-4 teams in the Mountain West and just merge them all together. There's 11 teams currently in the Mountain West. There's the 4 in the Pac. Have it be a 15-team conference. Rename it. You want to do the Mountain West Pac? I don't know. But one important thing to remember is that the Mountain West, they already have TV partners in CBS and Fox. That takes care of one huge problem right now that Pac-12 is currently facing. And they also have to remember that Notre Dame is still an independent school for football. It's still alive and well. So why can't Stanford do that? Have the other 3 schools go join the Mountain West for an even 14-team conference, and then Stanford go off on their own. play who they want, when they want. And then the rest of the schools play in the Mountain. The rest of their sports programs play in the Mountain West. But one thing's for certain, folks: the Pac-12 is dead. All right, let's get out of the sad story that is the Pac-12, and let's get the energy back up a little bit. The AP preseason polls out. Hooray! Unless you're me. I hate when these preseason polls come out. It's way too early. These teams change way too quick. Between new head coaches jumping ship and going to other ones, you got kids leaving to go to the NFL and they're graduating and going on with their lives, and then you have what is the proverbial carousel of the transfer portal. I mean, it just gets busier and busier every single season. In my opinion, you shouldn't release a single poll until at least week 4. Give it a little time to air out and see where these teams are out, not only within the college football, but just within their conference. There's only one thing that releasing these polls do. It just inflates strength of schedule. I mean, you have a team that plays a week 1 game against what's currently ranked number 7, and that number 7 team drops out. But hey, we played a 7 team. We beat them. In all actuality, that 7 team eventually went on to only win 2 games. But hey, they're still number 7 when we played them. Also, got to remember, especially in the coaches poll, coaches typically just vote for the other coaches that they're friends with, or even just band together and vote for the other conference teams to bolster the overall perception of the said conference. SEC. I mean, thankfully, the AP is usually closer in reality, but still, there's no need for it to be this early. Currently, they got top 5: Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, which I agree with. I mean, you could make an argument to flip-flop Georgia and Michigan a little bit. When you got Georgia and Kirby Smart looking to come off on their repeat national titles, looking for a 3-peat this year, but they're without a lot of those studs on the defensive side of the ball. They're without their 2-time national championship winning quarterback Stetson Bennett, who, if you didn't watch that Rams game, was lighting it up. Good for him. Then you also have Ohio State and Alabama, who arguably just lost their greatest quarterbacks in team history in C.J. Stroud in Ohio State and Bryce Young in Alabama. What's going to happen there? I mean, I definitely trust Ohio State a little bit more than Alabama, especially when you have talent like Marvin Harrison Jr. on offense, who could go overall number 1 next year's draft. Could have Heisman Trophy. See a different position than quarterback, get it for once. But Alabama is on a little bit of a downward spiral. There's one thing for certain that Nick Saban knows how to do, and that's the course correct and get that team back to play in shape and be competitive in the SEC, because you got no other choice but to win in that conference. Then you have LSU at 5. What in the hell is that? No, I don't agree there whatsoever. That goes back to the whole SEC bias, but of course, that's just my opinion. Then looking at it, showing some love to Iowa. Iowa's at 25. Tulane's up there at 24. Texas A&M at 23. That's a team that'll drop out of the 25 after week 1. I can guarantee that right now. Like I said, Oregon State and Wisconsin getting love at 18, 19. I think that Wisconsin team is going to be a lot more competitive in the Big Ten than most people think. Have them going head-to-head in the Big Ten championship game. Watch it. TCU at 17. They'll drop off at some point. Kansas State, it's going to be a sneaky team, especially in the Big 12 where it's hyper-competitive and it's kind of soft right now. Oregon's going to surprise a lot of people at 15. Notre Dame at 13, just leech into that name. That's the only reason they even got to the top 15, but surprise, surprise. Clemson at 9. Clemson at 9. They just came out and they won the ACC last year, and they were playing really well when people thought that Dabo didn't know what he was doing anymore. Showing some love to Florida State at 8 ahead of Clemson. That's the other thing, too. But you have LSU at 5, USC at 6, Penn State 7, Florida State at 8. I mean, you could make an argument to put Florida State at 5. I mean, hell, they beat LSU last year in week 1, if you don't remember. If anything, drop LSU down to 7 because I feel that USC or Penn State have a better resume at this point to be 5. I mean, hell, look at USC and Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams. Especially in the Pac-12, like we mentioned. Penn State's going to be competitive, like I said, in that Big Ten. No, one thing's for certain, folks, that these preseason polls are just a bunch of hogwash and rubbish and just nonsense just to get you excited for the year. And man, am I excited. Because each and every week when we do this show, I'm going to give you 2 games. First, we're going to go with the game of the week and the lame of the week, the game that nobody should watch at all. That's right, folks. Game of the week. Yes, technically we start in 2 weeks at week 0, but really the only game that you see there is the Notre Dame Navy game that's going to be played in Dublin. Nah, I'll pass. I'll wait till week 1. I mean, look at these games. You got West Virginia and Penn State rolling out Saturday. You got Colorado and Deion Sanders going up against a TCU team that lost Max Duggan and Quentin Johnston and Kendre Miller. I think TCU is going to have a little bit of a drop-off. I don't think that Cinderella story is going to happen again this year for him. And that's what Deion needs out there in Boulder. Get a win against a team like TCU. Whew! That would quiet up a lot of people real quick. And then you look at North Carolina. You got UNC and South Carolina playing. Man, Drake May, Spencer Rattler going up head-to-head against each other, which should set the tone for the rest of the season. But no. Yes, those are great games, but it's not the game to watch. Because I kind of alluded to it a little earlier on, because that's LSU at Florida State, a rematch of last year's barn burner, instant classic. Florida State winning 24-23. And how did it end, folks? A blocked extra point. Blocked extra point. I don't think I jumped higher off my couch in my life, because that was wild. Currently, Florida State holds an 8-2 record all time against LSU. ESPN, of course, is favoring LSU, but again, SEC bias. I didn't say it. It's going to be a great matchup, folks. You got 2 not only Heisman candidates, but NFL candidates. And Jordan Travis for Florida State, Jaden Daniels and LSU. Going back to last year, Jordan Travis finished the year with 64% completion, 3,200 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, 5 picks, and a 160.1 QB rating. Jaden Daniels got nothing to sniff at either. 68.6 completion rating, 2,900 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, 3 picks, and a rating of 144.5. Whew. Now, when you talk about keys to the game, Jaden has to make sure he can open that passing game up a little bit and not rely on his legs, because he is dangerous on the ground. Dangerous. That's what's going to make it even more important for that Florida State rush to make sure we can contain him a little bit. Keep him on the inside. Keep him in that pocket. Don't let him get out. And for Florida State, you got to get that running game started. Yeah, you got Jordan Travis. You got big bodies like Johnny Wilson. You got transfer Keon Coleman, a stud from Michigan State. But I think getting Trey Benson and crew running early, just so that way it helps Jordan Travis slow up a little bit. That would be great. And also talking about slow, you got to slow down that LSU, that tough LSU pass rush. They got a defensive front that I haven't seen in years. Scary, scary, scary. And talking about scary, I mean, it would be college shame day without throwing a little shade and a little shame on somebody. Did anybody else see that LSU brawl with the football players a couple days ago? What the hell is that about? I mean, you see plenty of times where players get in each other's faces and they're chirping and there might be a little bit of a scuffle, but this is all on brawl. What was it blamed on? Wasn't a dirty hit or excessive celebration? No, they blamed it on the heat. Folks, did you know it gets hot in Louisiana? I didn't, but I guess it does. I mean, hell, it gets hot and humid here in the state of Virginia. But the last thing that I want to do is fight somebody. And this even comes back off, from a couple months ago that somebody down there in the bayou got a little smart. They invented air-conditioned helmets. So you're blaming it on the heat, and you got AC on your head. I don't get it. I really don't get it. But hey, that's just the Brian Kelly effect, I guess. Either way, this is going to be a barn burner of a game. 7:30 Sunday, September 3rd in Orlando. Orlando, man, that place is going to be rocking. Both teams, fans usually travel really, really well, but I'm sure you'll be able to find me on the couch at that time. Ah, shit. Not again. It's these guys. Oh, that's right, folks. We got some clowns playing in week 1 for the 323 College Shame Day Lame of the Week. And who could that be? Who I'm not going to give virtually near as much love as I just gave to Florida State and LSU. And that's Miami of Ohio at Miami at Florida. It's the Miami Bowl, folks. Aren't you excited? Because I'm not. Here's what I say. Whoever loses that game changes their name. I'm not just talking about the school, but fuck the city. Change it all. I don't care. Fuck them. But no, folks, that's it for right now. Because I can't think of any better music to let go with this show than the clown music in the background. Because this college football season is going to be anything but a circus. Have a good one, folks.
Fuck Scott. Yeah, I like that.